Gold Corporation. You're based in the Yukon, that prolific gold mining mecca, and it's extraordinary. Let's start by, first of all, I'll get you to give us your symbol, what exchange you're on, but then let's dig into what makes the Yukon such an extraordinary place to be mining gold.
So white gold is the symbol is WGO, and the idea is that we're based out of Dawson City, Yukon, or that's where the hub is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like you live there. This is your life.
Well, that's what happened. Like I've been there for 26, 27 years in Dawson.
Yep.
Based out of there, and the idea was it was going to take a while to understand where the fable old. They're still mining placer there today.
Yep.
But they've been, that was where the historical gold rush took place. And we actually had somewhere in the neighborhood of 13 to 20 million ounces of placer with no known source ever seen. So I kind of look at it like Sasquatch hunting. Like you see all these tracks, all this placer gold, but no visual of the beast that produced it. So that's what we started undertaking that about 22 years ago.
You've been in this for a while then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was going to take time to understand it, and it's like one step at a time.
How did it start to unfold?
Give
me the Reader's Digest version, because 22 years is a fair bit of history.
So how that all began was because I'm a researcher, and it's kind of like statistics. In the Dawson district, there's only 2 to 3% outcrop exposure because it's non-glaciated. So if you're going to go out with a rock and pick like the old days, and the probability that gold is in the 2% of rock exposure, now you're actually statistically understanding the stats now. But it's a double-edged sword. So if there's not a lot of rock, there's a lot of soil though. So I actually had to change it and do some scientific study on it. And we ended up doing is going down deeper. Because when you go to university, they teach you to take a B horizon soil sample in university. That's the top 6 inches. That works in glaciated country. But when you got to the Dawson district, where it's non-glaciated, you actually had to go down 2.5 feet to get a response. So all the previous guys before me were all taking B horizons. And so what we ended up doing was changing the game way back earlier on, saying that quality is better than quantity, and understand, and then so we kind of came up with this, like, you had to go down 2.5 feet. We used soil augers, and you actually had to use soil grids, and not 200 soils, but 1,000 soils, 3,000 soils, 5,000. So the history that I ended up doing, most of my career now, is we probably have over 600,000 soils that my team has gathered on my projects. And we're mapping the thing out. And in a Dawson district, that with white gold, in that from Dawson to the coffee project, that was mine at one point, that we basically have over 450,000 soils. So then I could confidently tell you, statistically, where to look for gold. And what kind of gold deposit, because not all gold deposits are alike. Like it's a different animal. Is it epithermal, mother lode, mesothermal, or is it base metals? So we could figure that out with the geochemistry. So so what happened was, how it helped me as a prospector was, back in 2001, the GPSs basically came off so that we get 5-meter accuracy. The GIS computer systems that I could buy on an old laptop to allow me to plot 10,000 soil points in a matter of minutes versus 300 points a day for 3 elements by hand just a couple of years before that. And then the ICP-MS assay technique came out that gave you 36 elements for cheaper costs than getting 5 elements 2 or 3 years before. So that all hit the window at the same time.
Right.
So now that's done under this company called Ground Truth that Isaac and my wife run, Kathy. They run that company side as a contracting side. But the point was is it had to be quality data because the latte on the coffee was a 1 soil hit on 50 meters. If you were walking down the ridge, you would only got 1 hit. That's how small these things are. Yeah, so you had to pay attention to the detail. And the white deposit was a 3-station hit. Like it was, so they're very subtle, these things.
Okay.
Yep.
Explain to me exactly where you're at with your projects now. What do you have and what do they look like?
So now what we did with white gold was, after the big 2011 rush, we had up to 12 different companies that I had option claim blocks in the white gold district. Underworld was getting bought out by Kinross, Kaminak, that my coffee project was starting to find more ore. So everybody hit it hard, and we. But by 2012, it started coming back. Like everybody, the market crashed. I got all my projects back. So what I did is I said, okay, we did a good job at finding things with ground truth, but we could do it better. So what we ended up doing was going back to the drawing board and kind of jigging the way we explore. And we came up with this drones to drills technology with ground truth exploration.
Yeah.
And then what we ended up doing was taking that, and then I shopped that idea of how to explore now with basically 17 projects, so 40% of the white gold district, and then we shopped it around to people like Agnico with a business plan. And so that's what we started that about 2.5 years ago, and they financed us for 20% 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, and we got for 19.9% of the company. And it's the cool part about white gold, it's designed as, it's not to blow your money in one spot. I kind of created a business plan where we're going to spend roughly 500 grand per project on a phase one. And so it's kind of the analogy is kiss all the frogs, figure out how many princesses we have, instead of stopping on the first one. So the idea is, so we're in year 3 of that. We're going to, on a third year budget. But while we were doing that program the last 2 years, last year we approached Kinross to buy my original white deposit back. And then so
to buy it back,
from Kinross. Because so what they did is they sold us the deposit plus this JP Ross project that's I'll talk to you in a minute about for another 19.9% of the company. So now we have Agnico and Kinross as our partners. And then last year when we're doing this big regional on my old JP Ross property, we got back from Kinross. We found it's these high grade vertical structures that are from 3 meters to 7 meters wide of 2-ounce material. And what's got me all jacked up about that was out of this 13 to 20 million ounces of placer gold, we've never seen the beast that produced it. This is the first visual evidence of the style that this could be from, because we're in the hills above the Placer Creeks, and it's a unique area called Henderson Creek. So it's they've been mining placer gold there for 100 years, and now we think, well, I know we have the sources of it, and that's what's fun about it. So now what we found is a whole bunch of different veins, like about 7 or 8 structures that are going to add up to a lot of ounces real quick, and that's going to be the new one this summer. Because my analogy is like owning 40% of the Timmins camp. That's where I'm originally from. So imagine owning that today. Would you let any ground drop? You wouldn't. So that's what we own here is 40% of the camp, but they're mineralized haystacks based on this soils and this big crazy, because now I could prove it. That's the haystack. Now I got to find the needle in it.
Well, I think that your long-term commitment to this project speaks to the validity of it because you've never turned your back on it.
No, well, I'll tell you a little funny story. I got this from my days of mushroom picking, because you could control the mushroom patch if you stayed on that patch and went there every day. And every day someone else would walk away, but if you're there at 7 o'clock in the morning doing your due diligence and going there, you eventually control the mushroom patch. So that's what I did with the Dawson district. I eventually controlled the patch.
And you're feeling awfully enthusiastic about the future.
Well, you know what? It's always fun because these things are like pulling rabbits out of the hat. Like they just pop out, but you got to believe that the beast exists. And that's half the
well, you do, because if you don't, it would be too easy to walk away from.
Well, this is what happened to everybody else. So that's why, so you know, the analogy, there's a lot of different people at these conventions, but I'm a real prospector. So a prospector there's about 20% of the population that have prospector skills, but that's this inherent belief that something exists. You can't quite put your hand on it, but it gives you this confidence to basically keep moving forward.
And walk the ground.
Well, and it's still fun to walk the ground. That's what's fun about this game. Like when I go out in the bush, you're like making history because like it's so close to what you're touching here. And that's the cool part is like now this new Vertigo discovery, there's placer gold all around us. Wow. If this was in the Timmins camp, they would have found this 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But welcome to the Yukon. Like you could still find these virgin type deposits.
Sounds like an exciting future.
No,
Thanks
for
for coming
sure.
and sharing. It's a very interesting and enriching story.
Well, it's got a lot of romance with it and all this other stuff, so it's fun.
It's great. Thank you.
Okay.